We've been doing Angular just with hard-coded data, not real data, which is something that you would probably never actually do in the real world, but it's good practice. But now we want to get into using real data. Well, okay, real data, because it's just data that you're going to be getting from an API that you're running on your own computer. But we could totally just like swap that out for an actual API up somewhere on the net. Originally, we were going to have you guys using all the same API, just hosted on Heroku, and then we were like, well, these guys are going to be like adding stuff and deleting stuff, and then that'll show up on everyone else's page, so that might get really confusing if 60 students are all adding and editing and updating the same API all at the same time. So instead, we're just going to have it run on your own computer. To get that set up, please run these commands. And Adam is in the back if you start having trubs. I don't know why I always say trubs, trouble. I guess it's because we're really hood in Southern Ohio. So I'm going to go through the steps myself and just get all this stuff running on the desktop. Ooh, make sure you have your blue elephant running. I do not seem to have my blue elephant running, which could cause problems. I'm doing this on my desktop. You could do this wherever you want, presumably in your sandbox folder, in your WDI folder, or your in-class folder. When you get to the seeding portion, you're going to get something like this. Well, it's going to start spewing a whole bunch of stuff out on your screen. There we go. All of this stuff. So these are randomly generated grumbles. Yeah, and they're all taken from an API elsewhere. So when you see all this weird text, these are just a bunch of grumbles being randomly generated. And they're just being put out into the console as well. And at the end of all that, when you go to localhost 3000, you should get an internal server error. Fantastic. I thought I fixed that. Totally fixed that. Oh, man, no, apparently I didn't. So if you start getting this thing about missing secret token and secret key base, blah, 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 instructions on how to fix that are here in the README for this particular repo. So let me send out the link to that. So let's see. All right, so I followed the steps in the README, and now I have all of this stuff up here. So please raise your hand if you're having trouble getting to this point, all this stuff in the browser. Again, it may not look this pretty. I just have a JSON beautifier extension installed in Chrome.
What are we supposed to do again if we're missing a token?
Follow the instructions in the room that I just proposed. Yep. Part of that, it says to generate like a long random string. My string was not particularly long nor random. Yeah, so here's what I did. Yeah, make sure you have the right blue elephant running. Alexis, what was that for? Was that like Evernote? Yeah, Evernote also has an elephant, but it's not a blue elephant. I think it's actually a green elephant. So don't get your elephants crossed. Who's still working? By show of hands. Cool. Got a couple. Wave your hands in the air like you just don't care if you need help. Or like you do care. That's fine too. If you're still having setup trouble, guys, you'll have more time to work on it in just a second. You can see that the next part of this class is going to be just sort of doing a walkthrough of the current app. Before we get to that, Davis, what was it you were saying about a Rails database throwing you off? Yeah. Why is that? Well, but we are. I mean, you can use Angular with anything. You can use Angular with Rails, PHP, Node. No right answers. Sorry. Yep. Nah, man. You can use Angular with any old thing that you want. Yep. Yeah. So the next part of this lesson plan, this is awesome. Adrian wrote this thing out where it's going through like pretty much every file that you should have made over the course of yesterday and explaining each little thing. So you can see that it's explaining what ngapp is, what UISref is, blah, 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 blah. So what I would like you to do, there are 20 minutes budgeted for this, is take 10 minutes to just look through this with a person next to you. And with that person, try to come up with a list of 3 things that we could take 10 minutes to talk about afterwards. So you're going to take 10 minutes to look through this and come up with that list. Then we're going to take 10 minutes afterwards just to sort of go over those questions in the class, review whatever needs to be reviewed. If you can't find 3 things, that's fine. If you find way more than 3 things, then just sort of pick your top 3. I'm sure most people are going to have very similar 3 things, and that's perfectly fine. but we'll just see if we can get all of those things figured out. Any questions about what you're doing? Okay, cool. So I'm going to set the timer for 10 minutes. And if you're having trouble getting set up, then again, just throw your hand up and I'll mosey over.